Welcome to the Royal Family Real Estate Podcast, where none of us are shy about giving our opinions. We are a local, family-owned real estate brokerage and pride ourselves on being experts in the Chicagoland area. Join us on our podcast journey to hear what's going on in our local real estate market, as well as get an insider's point of view on this crazy industry. Welcome to the show.
All right, my friends, another Royal Family Real Estate Podcast. We made it. How you doing today?
Living the dream.
Yeah.
My hand just stuck on this paper. It's so humid.
Yeah, it is humid. We're, beginning of July right now. The market's still kind of rolling, which is kind of cool. And today we're going to kind of jam about like how are people winning deals and like from looking at from both buyers and sellers perspectives when we're looking at the contract and tearing it apart. So looking forward to doing this with you guys. And hopefully it cools off. So I don't want to make up the melt or anything like that because it is hot in here though.
Are you feeling it?
I feel it now too.
It.
Maybe it's the lights. I don't know what it is, but I think we just roll with it. And
you don't have any hair.
I don't have any hair.
I'm struggling.
But we might be in trouble.
Thinning.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys are hot, but I might be ruining the whole video because the shine off my head and the light might be ruining the whole thing.
We gotta show everybody how we persevere.
Yeah, we just push through it. Yeah. So all right.
The challenges of being a real estate broker.
Yeah. Sure, there's just water in there, Royal, or but excited to talk about this today. I think it's important. The market is it is what it is. It's been a great year in real estate. I think you said earlier it's going to be our best year as an office, but it's weird out there, and it's shifting, and we feel it and see it. So, but it's still weird. But how are people winning deals? I think people still need to move, and people still need to buy homes. So, let's look at it from an overview, from a contract point of view. Let's pick like a couple. Let's look at it from an overview perspective. Actually, I could say how are people winning deals right now in the market? You're seeing a lot. Both of you are seeing a lot from the listing side, but how are people winning deals?
Yeah. So I would say, for the most part, we're still getting multiple offers depending on the property and where it's located and pricing and all that.
Same amount of showings?
Less showings, less offers, but usually still multiple offers. And a lot of questions, do you have offers? So it seems like more and more buyers want to just feel that out before presenting. And sometimes
they're burnt out.
As a broker, you have to try to, see if you can get a couple in the mix. From those people that are interested. And, but let's say you got three of them, you see the as is, most of the time, I think the brokers are putting as is there. And not too many waiving of inspections, but happens on occasion. I just had one where they waived the inspection. And I always like to clarify what that means, that waiving the inspection means that you're not going through there with Uncle Bill, to
exactly
take a look and, we're not doing a formal inspection. It's like, no,
Uncle Bill's a general contractor.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's amazing
a real thing.
How often, if they say no home inspection, that is what they mean. That is what happens. That is what they want to do. And
sure.
You've told your seller they've waived home inspection and now they're making an appointment and it's
you're like, oh, what's going on? You're going in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're just gonna take some measurements.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Well, they say it's not official, but
Yeah. Right. Well, so I always like to make that clear when we have that. And what I always say is that by you waiving inspection is saying that, you're not going in there until final walkthrough. And I think that really then hits home with, oh, okay. Like we can't even go back in there to take another look.
Right.
I had told my buyer we were going to be able to go back in there and just take a look around.
Yeah.
And so then they
have a family member coming in or, the sister's coming in and we want to show it to her. I've definitely seen that before. I think that's smart to clarify.
Yeah. So by doing that, most of the time it turns out they say, yeah, okay, we're okay with that. But some of the time they'd be like, no, we're not going to do that. We'll just put it as is. And so at least now I know what I'm presenting to the seller and making sure that the offers are at a point that you're presenting it accordingly.
Right.
And then
So as is.
Yeah,
no home
breakdown.
inspection.
So breakdowns as is, home inspection. Sorry, Brenna, but let's break down as is a little bit too. I know we have realtors watching, we have homeowners watching. What does as is mean? Because even from realtors, I know sometimes the definition is different.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
So true. Yes.
Yeah.
what's it mean to you?
So, well, I'll just say the way I explain it to sellers when it comes in, right? So if the contract says as is, I say, so basically what this means as is doesn't mean what you think it means, because I think most people think it means that's it. They're just going to closing. Next time you're going to see these people is at the closing.
Yep.
They're buying it as is, no matter what. Fast forward to closing, you got it sold. It's done.
Yep.
And that's
100%.
not what it means. They still get to have a home inspection. They still get to walk away due to the home inspection. What they're not supposed to do is ask you for repairs. They have two choices after doing their home inspection: proceed or cancel. However, 90% of the time, if there's anything over $500, they ask for it anyway. And they don't even do it properly, because what they should do is say, hey, due to the home inspection, we have some items that we are considering walking away over. Would you like to chat it through, and have the attorney remove as is and then talk about it? But a lot of times they will just send that letter that they're not supposed to be sending with information about the property they're not supposed to be sharing. And, now as the seller, your option is to deal with that or not deal with it. But now maybe you know about something you don't want to know about, right? Like now we have, do we put on the disclosure? What do we do with that? But basically that's what happens the majority of the time. Major items, they're coming back, they're asking for it, whether they're doing it one way or the other. And you're probably going to say, yeah, I want to talk about it. Yeah, I want to deal with it because it's coming up on the next home inspection. What as is does do for you, which is nice, is saves you a honeydew list of $200 items that add up to $1,500. So it will save you some money, but it's not like, oh, we're going straight to closing, and if the foundation's cracking, no one cares, or the radon is high, nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're still going to deal with it if there's something.
You're going to fix that. Usually 9 times out of the 10,
major
if it's radon or if it's cracks, like you want, most homeowners want the home buyers to have a good home too. So if something major's happen, most people are talking. When you guys see that out there for the amount of business you do, I know you're up in McHenry County, so maybe is it different?
I mean, I think that most people think that all things it's a house, it's a used house, and it's going to have problems, right? And are you going to deal with the used house problems, or are you going to bring me back a list of every little teeny tiny 20-cent item that isn't right with the house? And I mean, I don't think anybody wants to sell.
It's been so long ago.
I don't think anybody wants to sell a house that's got problems. But if the buyer knows about the problem and they're okay with the problem, I think the seller's happy to say, great,
cool.
I'll deal with my problems on my new house and you deal with this one. Everybody's happy. You know what I mean? As long as everybody's happy and it's out there, I think that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, so I explain as is. I just say that, it's an understanding that they're not going to bring anything up unless it's major. But that being said, I've had buyers bring up GFIs, seals in windows, or what, like really nitpicky things that they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an understanding going into it that they're not going to bring it up unless it's a safety concern. And I'd rather have as is than not having as is, but doesn't mean there's not going to be any issues. But if they bring it up, we can say no.
It definitely will save you some money. Like I said, that honeydew list can get pretty expensive.
Yeah. But which is crazy because the home inspection clause, specifically says you shouldn't have those honeydew list things. Should be just only major components. And if it's in operating condition, it's fine. Even if it's at the end of its useful life.
Is that it? Only if that actually happened. I feel like as is.
That's the same thing with as is. It's just like, it's watered down in the way that I think agents approach the negotiation of it.
Yeah.
I think if it was up to the attorneys, you might see much more hard. This is the way it is. But I think agents kind of push the envelope and say, I think we can ask for this or that. And they're representing their clients.
I actually had a deal in June that happened with an attorney I don't work with too often, but he was about to ask for like the GFIs and something simple. Like, and I'm like, really? No, dude, like we had to fight to get this thing. Like, what are you doing? Like,
on, man.
I was like, what are you doing? Like, were you going to talk to me? It was, and like me and her had a plan. And he was like, oh, when I talked to her, she was concerned about these things. I'm like, but that's not what we agreed to, and she's hyper aware of that.
It as is?
And it was as is. And like, I was like, I don't think this should be done. I think it could possibly kill the deal. Because if I'm the listing agent of this, I'm going to call the buyer's agent and be like, "What's up, dude? Hey, this isn't major. What's the disconnect here?" And really try to understand that. And usually they back down there, but it still comes to you. People ask for stupid stuff. To your point, like come on, like that's not what as is means. So I come from your place. I learned as is from one of your like Dropbox videos in 2017, going through the contract, and I just repeated that. What were you saying, Brenna?
I think sometimes the disconnect is that some attorneys and agents think any safety issue is open to ask for, even if it's as it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
GFI.
Yeah.
Even a GFI. It's like $40 at Home Depot. You know what I mean? But
GFIs me. Take care of that yourself. It's a cracked foundation. If there's tons of mold in the attic, or if there's radon, like I think let's talk. Let's build a win-win with each other. But yes, the smaller stuff, like come on, like that's $160 to go get 4 outlets.
Right. Try to put in perspective, and maybe give them a referral to someone who's like, yeah, they can easily do this.
Right.
That's try not to rock the boat.
You're nicer than me. I don't do that. Well, for the buyer, I will. For the buyer, I will, but not for from the listing side. I wouldn't share.
Oh, no. I'm talking about on the buy side.
Oh, yeah. No, I would do that for sure. Yeah, I would find a connection. Yeah, definitely. So we have as is, no home inspection to go over. What are some other things that we're seeing out there now, either in the contract or on the side of the contract, that are helping, people build win-wins and create the deals out there for real estate right now?
So one other thing that, when we've got all the offers and putting them all together and comparing, one thing I'll go back to each of the brokers is see if they'll make up the appraisal, or to what amount. And then
good realtors giving that to you too. Right.
Yeah, I think they're at least trying,
Yeah.
You mean beforehand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on if the buyer's okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know when we represent buyers, we use that as a tool that we try to, hey, you may want to do this to try to juice up your offer.
Mm-hmm.
But I send all the addendum to them, and then get either an answer whether, yes or no, they're going to make it up, or how much. If they are, up to how much, or if there's no limit. And then you've got that as an additional point to, review with your seller.
So let me ask you something. When you go back and you say that, do you ever think to yourself like, oh, I want to be careful how I word this, because I don't want them to think I'm afraid that the appraisal isn't going to come in.
Yeah. I think, originally when we started to do this
a
couple of years ago, that was, people would be like, oh, are you afraid it's going to appraise out?
Yeah. Cause I get a lot of that, the other agents and
Yeah. So, but now I haven't had that in a while. I just think maybe because people are used to being asked that, or knowing that maybe that's a tool that they could use. And I always just say, if they do ask that, no, I'm not afraid of it. I think we'll be fine. But, it's just an additional point that could, make it your offer that much more stickier to get us to closing in case something happens.
It helps you stand out. I think that's the biggest thing. Even the market shifting and slowing down. If you're in multiple offer situations, it's about communication, but it's about making your offer stand out. I feel like that appraisal gap is a piece of it. It's my conversation in buyer consults is slowly changing, but that's been in there. Like when we're talking about it, like this is a tool that we could use, if you have the ability to be able to, bring extra cash to the table. This we're going to get into a house for this. Know that I'm going to do a market analysis. Know that I'm talking to the agent. I'm doing all the research so we understand this. But this is how we're going to help win a deal. Most likely and hopefully you don't have to bring money to the table, but you might.
Right.
But I try to give it to them up front. That it helps win. Yeah.
And just to be clear, in case anybody doesn't know what an appraisal gap is,
Yeah.
it's if the appraisal that your lender, the buyer's lender does, comes in lower than the purchase price, you are saying you will make up a certain amount or all of it or whatever in your appraisal gap that you're offering to the seller in your offer.
Yeah. So if it's like 20,000, then the idea is that, because I'll call every lender to make sure that they're pre-approved and go through my list of questions. And then if we've got the appraisal gap, it'll be, do they have that additional $20,000 on top of their down payment to make up that difference?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they'll tell you or say, no, I can't tell you that. And then you get approval from the buyer's agent to get that released.
Yeah.
So a little bit of legwork in the front end. But then when you meet with the seller, it's all kind of prepared. And
that you can doing it that way just keeps the deal smoother. When you're calling the lender, when you're talking through all that and thinking of all the angles where it could fall apart, like you're getting ahead of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Which your sellers have an advantage.
Out where I'm at, I did not see a lot of appraisal gaps this year.
No,
I did not.
Yeah. I think it depends on the competitiveness of the situation.
Yeah.
Last
year when we were getting 10 offers on everyone, I saw almost everyone had an appraisal gap, I feel like, or 8 out of 10. This year, not as much, not even very many. I mean, a lot of these extras weren't on there, this year.
The last one or last two I did, appraisal gaps, just that the buyer said that they would do. A couple said they wouldn't do it. A couple were just like very small amounts.
Right.
So it wasn't as much of an appetite for it.
Yeah. A year ago, 2 years ago, it was like, whatever it is, we'll cover it.
Cover it.
I mean, yeah.
Well, those are crazy times. That was when there was like no home inspection, but like I'm guilty of I brought a home inspector to a showing, like second showing, we're going in, we need this house, and it helped. It was quick, 30-minute showing, and he did his thing. Maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. Nobody knows, but 2 years
I'm sorry,
ago.
Did you have a showing on my listing tomorrow?
It definitely was not. Don't want to work with this guy. So appraisal gap, appraisal rider, those are helping win. What else is on the contract that breaks things down?
I got a real easy one.
Yeah.
Earnest money.
Yes.
Crank up the earnest money.
Yeah.
Just looks good on the first page.
Sellers love having a high earnest money amount.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost the buyer any more money outside of just making sure they've got that money.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Especially if you got 20% down. What's the chances that they're going to lose their earnest money?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Count on my hand the amount of times that's happened.
Yeah.
My 20 years in this business.
I can't even.
It's never happened to me. Yeah.
No. In fact, I've only ever seen earnest money one time split in half. That's it. It's the only time I've seen earnest money touched one way or the other.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen like partial givebacks because the buyer lost their job before.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Something happened, but
it's very uncommon.
Very uncommon. Very uncommon. So, you can raise that. It makes your offer look that much better.
Right.
The down payment, 20%, sellers are going to look at, they're putting 20% down, the other putting 5%.
Right.
Even though the 5 might be better qualified.
That's interesting that you bring that up, because a lot of times I'll when I'm talking to people, I just had one, when it comes to like 5% down or FHA or whatever, obviously if you got a multiple offer situation, you know what the cream is, right? You know what to pick, right? You know what to look for. Now, sometimes, right, you might have conversations with all the lenders and be like, I know they're putting more down, but they're also self-employed and they haven't,
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is, I have not seen in my 17, 18 years in real estate that putting more down means you're more likely to get to closing, or being conventional versus FHA means you're more likely to get to closing. especially since the downturn, the lenders are
That's
pretty
interesting.
good at evaluating the buyer's ability to get to the closing, you know? And
especially if you're doing the legwork like he was talking about, where you call the lender
Right,
and you're
which
making
I
sure
do
that they're
do, yes,
totally properly
yes.
pre-approved.
You know, so like I just had one where they, you know, the best by far offer was FHA. And at the end of the day, I had to say, you know, okay, we need to think about the appraisal, right? Blah, blah, blah. We need to think about what might be wrong with your house, But I'm not anticipating those problems. It's so much more money. I don't see FHA close less often than conventional.
Yeah, as you say, I don't think I have either, and I feel like I haven't seen FHA at least a lot in a long time.
Yeah, if all else was the same or even close, right? You probably want to go with the conventional.
Yeah,
but with one being so much higher in FHA, I'm like,
in conventional is a 3% down now. I know.
Well, a lot of the conventional,
of it,
they're only bringing 3%. Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And actually, when I talked to the lender on that one, they said that they can go conventional if we want to switch to conventional. But FHA, the interest is so much lower, and they're not putting down 20% either way they go, that they, you know, they opted to go that way because it's just going to be a significantly less payment.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since I've had an FHA deal.
Yeah. This is the first one I've had in a while.
Yeah. And but you know, like with FHA, you've got, if there's peeling paint,
right?
You know,
railings, right? I think is another thing that would need to be.
That's why I always talk about that.
Carbon
and then the other thing,
monoxide detectors, or you know, like really some.
They
really
all make them have carbon monoxide detectors.
I don't know. Like the FHA, I don't know. Is conventional? Do they make that? I don't know.
They check for it while I'm there.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
I'm not
I
sure.
don't know. You know what? It all depends on the appraiser, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It just depends on the appraiser. I mean, the craziest appraisal I ever had
have Sean on the podcast.
Was a conventional one. They're putting down 50%. It appraised $130,000 over the purchase price. And still, they made them come back. There was one little spot where water had been in the office ceiling, and have a plumber check the upstairs master bath above it, make sure nothing was leaking, and then kills and paint over it on a conventional.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it was
what happened? Like
nothing. They had a plumber come and write off that
it's fine.
Everything was fixed. It was an old leak. And then they swiped some paint over it, had him come back and look, appraiser.
But usually,
it was just silly.
Usually with FHA, there's a reason they're going FHA.
Yeah, credit maybe.
Credit, you know, debt to income ratios, down payment, you know, like get a 3% conventional, you have to
for sure
qualified.
But nonetheless, they seem to get to closing just as often.
I don't know. I would challenge that.
Really?
Yeah. I would challenge that. Yeah. I mean, we could probably Google it and find out the stats there, but I would say FHA.
Keep talking and keep arguing.
Yeah. I would think that would have
Chat
a higher
GPT.
That may be true, but I don't think it's very dramatic because in my experience, they've closed just as often. In fact, in my experience, most of them close.
Well, yeah, that's the idea, right?
Right. I can't even remember the last time I had one that didn't close.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. You know, due to the lending.
Yeah. I mean, I remember some back but you know, when the market was terrible.
Yeah.
2012-ish. But another item you could put in to make it look better is escalation clause. Or not make it look better, but I guess
it is better.
Escalation clause.
Better.
I love it, but
yeah.
You love it as the seller or the buyer?
I love it as a buyer. Seller, of course, I would rather not see it, but I also respect it. I mean, it keeps us in some type of like, you know, like road. Like this doesn't go too crazy. You know?
Well, and you could say no escalation clause.
And that's what I've done recently.
Have you?
Yeah, I see people doing that too, and I get why. I just
I mean, I understand why as the buyer you want it. I'm buying something, I'm using it, but if I can, but I just think
it does make you wonder if you take that, there's a feel good about knowing that maybe you only pay $2,000 over the next highest offer. There's someone that's close to you.
Right.
But what if
That's why I love it when I'm working with the buyer.
what if you accept that
That's it.
high one, and then there's no one else that's really close, and then they get cold feet because they're like, I went in way too high. You know?
Is it worth taking that risk?
Well,
What I'm saying is
I'm
the
sorry,
seller.
what are you
It's the
saying?
seller.
As the
It-
seller, then you don't
you
want
have the
that?
seller, you say no escalation clauses, and then you get this high offer that's maybe they would have went to that same I don't know, like you say no escalation, and then you get this one that comes in high, and then but they don't really know if they're close to anything else. You know, do they have a higher dropout rate because maybe they feel like they went in too high? I don't know.
I don't really have that experience. And in fact, I would say on all the multiple offers, it is almost always like it's listed at 400. You got the 399, you got the 400 offer, you got the 402, you got the 410, you got the 412, and then you got the 440. You know, that's like way above the other offers.
Oh yeah,
You
I'm
know?
sure he sees that being in Schaumburg, most of your business. Like that's
Right. But
Yeah.
you know, we'll have the escalation clause that'll say they'll pay X amount over. And then you ask them, you say, you know, you go back to them and say, okay, this is what your offer's at.
Right.
And then I've had where they say, no, we don't want to go that high.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
Or some people will put
But
no
then the
limit.
other high one gets it and they close.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
See? So
Right. But
same.
it's just kind of like a,
So it's a little bit of the Wild West right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
out there
Yeah, yeah.
with that,
Definitely as a
It's
buyer, I'd
shifty
love to
now.
have the
Yeah.
escalation clause, you know,
What else? So escalation clause on the
the
contract,
love
tax
letter.
love letter. But can you do that? I thought like fair housing laws, we can't do that.
What?
The love
People
letter.
sign them all the time.
you can send it, but whether or not you want to present it to your seller.
Yeah.
And,
It's up to you or something? I never
well,
heard this.
you want to talk about it with the seller to see if they want to expose themselves to a potential
Oh,
fair housing issue.
I see.
Because you read one and it's
Yeah.
one way, and you read another and it's maybe someone that you relate with a little bit better,
Right.
and they choose to go with that person
Yeah.
Yeah.
over the other one, and now are they exposed to something discriminatory?
Yeah.
You know, so
They
safe bet
work
is just
though.
to not
Yeah.
to
To not do it.
to
but
not do it, and but that's something you'd want to talk about with your seller about.
Like ahead of time, like,
Yeah.
am I going to share these with you or not share these with you?
And
Yeah.
you let them have a choice. I know for me, I did the letters, and then something happened at the office I was at the time where they made it like the whole month's talking about like no letters. So then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, no letters. And I would have my clients do a video with like and then I would it's a
No
surprise.
letters. Do a video.
Do a video, and then I would send it with the offer and it won deals because it touched people's hearts for whatever reasons. It just, but you do have to share with the clients if they want to be able to see it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a buyer standpoint, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it can give you an edge, but I just think
Yeah.
that from a listing agent standpoint, you just got
Do you
to
want to
talk
deal
with
with
the
it?
seller
Yeah.
about
They definitely want to see them though.
potential.
They love those love letters. I spend a lot of time
true.
saying, I know you love them. Stop it. It's a business deal. Like,
Yeah, right. It's funny you say that
just
because
stop
you're like the heart around it, but yeah, for
No,
people in their
I mean,
homes,
it's
you're like
very much a
cut and
business
dry,
deal.
yeah.
I am reminding people of that
Yeah.
all the time, you know. In fact, on one I had recently, he was like, they look just like what, their kids are the same age as that ours were when we moved into the house. It'll be perfect for them. I'm so excited for them. And I was like, yeah, but the 20,000 less than this other offer, come on. And he's like, well, I'm sure they just can't afford it. And I'm like, their pre-approval says they can afford 50,000 more than that offer. Just it's a business deal. It's a business deal.
That's it.
Let's
True.
settle down,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anything else that makes your offer stand out? I think I have one other thing that was kind of tied with lenders, but anything else on the contract before we jump to that?
Closing date, let them know flexibility,
Right.
Mhm. Rent backs with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If needed.
Post possession,
Mhm.
closing.
You mean if the seller wants it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's where
Or
you
needs it
Right.
in this market.
feel out the agent and see what their seller's looking for in terms of what's going to be most attractive for them.
Right.
Yeah, the home inspection, which, I don't recommend that to anybody. You waive that.
Condo or a townhome that's pristine is the only time I would even think about doing it, unless you bring a home inspector there before you're at the offer. But yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I've had some crazy stuff, though. I had somebody who offered to make quilts for all their children.
Well,
yeah.
I've had some people offer some crazy whatever they can do.
But that's human. Like there's a connection there, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's beautiful. If somebody's thinking of that, like that's a personal touch.
It's really sweet. We didn't take it.
Yeah, it's really sweet. Business. Yeah. Here's the tissue. This one's the better deal.
You know how many quilts you can buy with that money?
Yeah, right. The other thing I was thinking of is it goes back to the pre-approval piece, and like maybe other offices do this too, but I know Fairway Mortgage, where they'll pay for your pre-approval to go through underwriting, so they could close in as little as 2 weeks. And then if the home doesn't have a home to sell, or the person doesn't have a home to sell, they will like guarantee it with cash, which that's like stands out in a in a crowded market space for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Helps, but yeah,
that's huge. Yeah, if you can waive the financing piece, which I guess in that case you're putting cash with mortgage.
Yes, I would think so. Yeah.
I think Fairway.
I don't know if I've done that until you said that, but that makes sense to do that. I've done it where it's contingent upon mortgage, but I actually think it should be cash with mortgage. Cash. Yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I will say with all those things though, to do with the mortgage, right? Like, it kind of depends on, I've had people do that, it's nice when the lender calls you. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. So instead of I have to call them, they just call me like right away.
So that's piece of it too. I was thinking of is communication, and you're right. And it's with the agent too, but with the lender, that's key.
It makes me feel good. Like, but at the end of the day, it's
good business.
It's 99.9% about the money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even if you got, this person's got 3% down and this one's got 20% down, and this, you went on and you had 5, 6, 7 offers, right? Their closing is in 3 weeks. Okay. So maybe it's going to take 2 weeks to find out if they're going to get that loan. Would you wait 2 weeks to see if you're going to get $10,000 more? Worth the wait. You know what I mean? Like, I'm confident if we go back up in 2 weeks, we're just going to go right back under. And
that appraisal gap, rider can really have an impact there.
Sure.
Because if one's giving you 5,000 more, but is making up it no appraisal gap, and the other is giving you 5,000 less, but they're doing no limit to the gap, and you're kind of worried about the appraisal,
right?
Even if you think it's going to be close, that could be the difference. Or cash. I don't know when we talk about cash, but just going straight cash.
Yeah.
If someone has it, but then with that, you obviously got to verify the funds,
right?
And then
and I always ask if they're going to have an appraisal anyway, because they can. And I've had that happen.
It happened to me once too. I was so confused.
The whole reason we took appraisal.
Yeah, I was like really cautious. I'm like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Like, it was priced right and it was fine. But it had to happen to me only once on a cash deal. I was caught off guard by it.
They can if they put it in their attorney letter, right?
Right, but you don't know that at offer. Like, I don't want to see something in the attorney letter that says now you're getting an appraisal when we took your offer.
Yeah.
Because of this,
Yeah, but I mean, you could ask for whatever in the attorney offer at that point.
It's true, but if that's their intention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
so, communication from the agent. What are you looking for as top listing agents in the area? What do you want from the buyer's agent as far as communication when it comes to coming after your listing?
I want to hear, hello, this is so-and-so with whatever real estate company, and not 847 2-1. Is there voicemail? Or
that is so true.
Or voicemail.
Well, dealing with a part-timer here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's funny.
Because it is true. The agent is
That's not what I was thinking.
Most important pieces. What?
No,
he was like, that's a red flag.
Red flag.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or that their voicemail's full, or the lender's voicemail's full.
Yes.
Those are all leading indicators of communication down the road.
Being a problem. For sure.
Yeah. So I think good communication, like quick response and seem excited, that tells me that their buyer probably, and part of what I do when I call the lender is I'll ask the lender how long the buyer's been looking. And, whether it's been, they just got the pre-approval, and you can see the date of the pre-approval, but that could have been made today and they've been looking for 6 months.
Yeah. A lot of times with my buyers, we're getting new pre-approval for different offers.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but how long they've been looking, how many offers they put in, and then I'll ask the agent the same question.
Yeah.
And
it was two different things.
Yeah. Then you might have to dig a little bit there to find out the answer. But if I've got a buyer that's been looking for, 3 or 4 months and has put 6 offers on it, that buyer is a lot more sticky than someone who just saw it.
Yeah.
Or just started looking in the last week and this is their first offer and they're getting it because their agent told them they'd be aggressive and they did.
Right.
That buyer is going to have a much higher likelihood of pulling out or asking for
causing troubles
things.
and
for sure. If you've been through the ringer a little bit, you have a respect for the process that you're in and you're grateful that you have a house now, right? So you're not nickel and diming people. You're not, you're handling it,
well, the
professional
agent
way.
doesn't want to get back out there and look at any more homes.
No.
And the buyer doesn't want to.
Yeah, that's common. That's fine.
I just had a deal that lasted AI lasted all the way to closing through because it was a foundational issue that we had to work through. But it was because it was a buyer that's been looking for a while. Like, we don't want to go back out there. We love this house, and we're like, well, if this is an issue, we want to make sure you get a right home. So we're fixing it. Like, they joined us on the journey with it, which is the first time I went through that. But
they've got one eye on you the whole time, the other eye on properties that are coming on the market.
Totally.
nothing yet. Okay, close.
But I felt confident because there's not much coming on the market in the area they were looking at. So
it's true.
I was looking too. I knew what they were doing. But grateful to be here.
Another point, when you're working with the buyers, right? But that makes a difference to me when I'm working with the sellers. So when you're working with buyers, right, do you send a pre-approval for the amount they're approved for, or do you lower it to the amount you're offering?
Say it one more time.
So I used to always lower it to the amount that we were offering before the market went nuts. You know what I mean? Because we didn't want to give our hand away of how much we could afford, right? Especially when you're negotiating, sellers would be like, when I was on the other side with the sellers, they'd be like, what do they care? They can afford $100,000 more than this. Yeah. We need every dollar to walk away.
Afford it.
Yes. What do they care? They have tons of money. You know what I mean? So I would always have the lender write a letter just either with the address and no amount or with the offer amount.
I like the offer amount. It's kind of in my MO, but
Well, now in this market, I
put highest you can.
Or I would put it to where we were like whatever the escalation clause was, that would be the max type thing. But I guess in all reality, it probably looks better like a little above it. Yeah, I say that out loud. Yeah,
because when the seller's looking at it, they see that high amount. Like,
they're good. Yeah, I didn't think
Love
of that. But
a person who's buying below their means.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's a good buyer.
Yeah, I never looked at it from that perspective, but totally.
Yeah. But it's funny because I just had one where it was just like a soup pot of people I know and the buy on the sell and the blah, 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 blah. And the lender was just nutty. And we all agreed nutty. But he called me because I had the listing and was like clearly in love with this buyer and just went on and on and on and on. And sent me a pre-approval for $1 million, even though this was like nowhere near that, and gave me like tons of information, just way overkill. And I was like, normally I like this, but now I kind of feel like the buyer's like probably doesn't want you to do all that. Like, like unnecessary. There's not even multiple offers here, dude. Settle down.
Settle down. That's a clip.
So you gotta know the limit, right? You gotta read the room,
For sure.
on what's appropriate. how far to go with things,
Yeah, totally. Each deal is unique in that too,
Right.
Or each market is unique. So,
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things with when you have a high down payment, I think, or percentage down, that a seller will look at it. It makes sense in some ways. It all goes to talking with the lender, but they might have additional room to put towards an appraisal difference. And I think a lot of sellers like, 20% down, they have plenty of room. It won't matter if there's an appraisal issue. It's like, well, that's not true. Because they still have to bring that additional, whatever that difference is. But there are times where, lenders have had that conversation with buyers, and then I talk to them about it, that it's like, okay, well, we're putting 10% down, but we can go down to 5%, and she's got that additional 5% to use as an appraisal makeup if needed.
Right.
On the gap, right?
But at least usually if they have more money, there's a potential to meet you somewhere with that low appraisal, where if there's just no money.
Right.
Yeah. And
this year, did you see a lot of low appraisals coming back with the above lists offers that were coming through?
I only hit, I'm thinking off the top of my head, but I can only recall one this year, and we had an appraisal gap writer.
Yeah.
Only one this year for me too.
That's pretty awesome, yeah.
Which I knew it was like completely ridiculous. It was right at the beginning of the season, and the last best comp that just closed 2 weeks ago was 250, and we were at 330.
Oh, wow.
Oops.
It was like in a townhouse community where it's like, how different could it be? You know what I mean? Like So, we knew, but we did have an appraisal gap, but we didn't.
Gold fixtures.
It didn't fill the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was still 15,000, still didn't fill the whole thing.
Okay. Didn't make up the full amount. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was a bummer. But that was just at the beginning of the season. And I kind of find that happens every year. At the beginning of the season is when you see more of those low appraisals. They got less to work off of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're working off of comps from December.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just the one, I think, this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Surprisingly, not as many. I think part of it is that we go to the appraisal.
Yes.
I think that makes a difference, trying to.
Yeah. Bring the comps, give them all the information.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Smart.
A lot of brokers don't do that.
Goes back to communication and relationships. That's a strong, don't be a jerk to the appraiser. That's a rule number one.
Right.
At least to start.
You know what? That's always so hard because the appraiser calls and is like, yeah, I'd like to go at such and such a time. And I'm like, not available. And I'm like,
how do I make it work?
How do I make it work? Because I don't want to say no to the appraiser. We want to just be very, very, very nice to the appraiser.
Yeah. Make their life simple too. They got a job.
Yeah. They're in the area that day for whatever reason. They want to, I get it, so always trying to. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about around this topic, or you want to close out to the next one? You got to go to Italy.
I do.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Tuesday.
Yeah. All right. So sell some houses there too.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm interested to see what they look like.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty cool. So first time there?
No. Second time, but now the kids are coming. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, it'd be a fun time.
It'd be great.
The next podcast, we want to, Brenna and I want to hear all about this to start out the show. So
what happens in Italy stays.
You'll hear nothing.
All right. On that note, my friends, follow and subscribe. Next time you see Royal, he'll be 20 pounds heavier with all the pasta. Exactly. Appreciate you. If we can support you, give us a call at the brokerage. Thanks.